Welcome to the Film Trooper podcast, empowering filmmaking entrepreneurs.
Hey, welcome to the Film Trooper podcast. Yes, this is the podcast where we empower you, the filmmaking entrepreneur. And a great way to get started is to get the book, How to Make and Sell Your Film Online and Survive the Hollywood Implosion While Doing It. It's available in paperback, Kindle ebook, as well as an audiobook. And in fact, you can get the audiobook for free when you go to survivetheimplosion.com. That's survivetheimplosion.com. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Film Trooper. Today is a returning guest who's been on my show many times, is a good friend of mine, and you know him from Indie Film Hustle, Alex Ferrari. And we're here to actually talk about this new book that he wrote. It's called Shooting for the Mob. It's based on a true story of his where he had this opportunity to fulfill all the dreams that we all have of becoming, being paid a lot of money to make a feature film in the biggest stage you can imagine. But there's a little catch. It was tied to the mob and how that affected his work. So Alex shares with us a little bit about the writing process as well as what the book was and what it meant to him. And then we get into the business part of it too, essentially going over what it means to release any sort of digital product, whether or not it be a book, an album, a music album, or even a film. Obviously, you probably want to know about releasing a film. So we kind of get into that kind of stuff. So the first half of the interview of our session, because it runs pretty long here, it's about an hour and a half, this particular episode. We get into the writing of the book and then the marketing, some strategies about selling digital goods online, and some tricks that we've learned from other entrepreneurs and how to apply it to your digital goods, this being a independent film. And then we get into sort of the talking shop. Actually, we get into a side story about, if you're thinking about releasing your own podcast, about some of the little tricks that we've encountered and some challenges we've had releasing podcasts on iTunes of late, when iTunes changed their parameters of how they will accept podcasts, and even podcasts have been on for a long time, like Alex's and mine. Changes kind of screwed some of our stuff over. So we go into that, as well as we go into just talking shop about, after knowing each other for the last 3 years, what changes have we seen in the independent film sector, especially for independent filmmakers like us, who are working in the budgets of, your $5,000, $10,000 range, even lower than that, just, scrapping by. We're not quite in the same circles as like the Independent Spirit Awards or necessarily the film market world. So what does that mean? What does the landscape mean for anyone, trying to make films and make money and build a career out of it when you may not be in Hollywood? So it's just kind of a fun sort of like fly on the wall, listening to two of us just kind of banter back and forth and really trying to touch upon a lot of different subjects to keep in mind the struggle and the plight and the desire to continue to make films no matter what level you're at. So without further ado, here's my returning guest and my good friend, Alex Ferrari from Indie Film Hustle, here on the Film Trooper podcast. Last time we spoke over the time was like 2 years ago, like we were doing our masterminds. You were talking about this book, or about an opportunity to do this book, and now it's finally come out. Now, it's bonkers to me, like how much content you put out, how much stuff that you hustle, and then you had time to write a book. Because I knew how much time it took me to write my book, and it was I had to shut down for like a good like 2 months just to power through it. But how did you manage to write this on top of everything else that you were doing? And then, then tell us about the book, or at least the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the writing of the book was, it took me probably around 12 months on and off to do. Emotionally, I had to go some places I didn't want to go to. So it took me a bit to kind of go through it. I mean, it's not a technical book. It's kind of like a really raw, portion of my life. It's the darkest time of my life. So emotionally, I had to prepare myself after certain chapters. I would literally skip certain chapters because I didn't want to go there emotionally, or I wasn't ready to. So I would skip because I knew what was going to be in there. So it wasn't like I had to kind of figure out the writing. The stories were all in me. I just outlined everything and then I just wrote. My average when I was writing, I was averaging anywhere between 800 to 1,000 words a day. And that was my goal. And that's about an hour's worth of work every day. So it wasn't that complex. I just kind of like went through it and just kind of powered through it. And I think the book ended up being around 55 to 60,000 words all totaled in. So, here and there, I would just kind of do work, and sometimes I'd do long stretches, and sometimes I wouldn't. And then it was buying a house, and and life, and indie film hustle, and other stuff like that. And then, of course, just the excuse of like, well, I just don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back to that dark place. I mean, I was crying I was literally, tearing up while I was writing certain scenes or certain chapters because it was so emotionally draining to go back there. But that was the process, man. And then afterwards, I just did the rewrite and cleaned it up. And then I've gone through the editorial process multiple times, cleaning all my my grammar up and like, making sure all the commas are there and all the periods are there and all that stuff. But that's basically the process.
Well, okay, so you did it. So I was just curious. So it's interesting because if I'm correct, it's for sale now. Because when I saw the link, it was a pre-order.
Arguably, it is for sale.
Okay.
But with that said, it won't be officially released till the 8th. Amazon it says on Amazon that it's officially available to purchase, and you can purchase it. You just won't get it for a few weeks because my publisher is, believe it or not, dealing with printing enough copies.
Interesting. Okay.
It's been getting a lot of pre-orders and stuff like that. So we're finishing up a little bit of some editorial stuff, and we're just kind of getting things ready for the printing process. So that's basically where we're at today. So on next week at this time, you will have access to the ebook will be instantly available. The paperback book will take probably a couple weeks at least to get to you if you ordered it or pre-ordered it.
Okay.
And then I'm working on the audiobook as well.
Okay. Oh, that's going to be tough. Are you actually going to be doing the audio or having somebody else do it?
Ask the question again to yourself and think what the answer might be.
It's you.
Okay.
But then I don't know how you go back to that dark place again. I guess since you've written it.
So I've written it. So this is a wonderful thing about writing this book, that I have exorcised all the demons. I have absolutely no issues whatsoever talking about any aspect of the book. Where before, if you remember, I would tell you like glimpses of this story. Mm-hmm. Like I would be very cagey about it because I just didn't want to kind of swirl it up. But I swirled it up so much that once the first draft was done, I was free.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I came across was that there was this huge weight. It wasn't very cathartic, but it was a huge weight that was lifted off of me that I did not know I was carrying, which was the most interesting thing about this process for me. Because it's not like I sat for 18 years like, oh, poor me. It wasn't that. So I hadn't even thought about Jimmy or this entire journey with this book or the story of my life for probably 10 years. Like I hadn't even heard his voice in 10 years. You know what I mean? So, or longer for that matter. So it wasn't like something that was in the forefront of my head, but apparently on a subconscious level, this really did affect me and affected a lot of my decision making for better part of 2 decades because of what I went through. But now I am unleashed. I am free once I was able to do this. So I always thought when I felt that the weight was lifted, I'm like, I was carrying this massive weight on me that I did not know I was carrying. So I could only imagine how many other people in the world have that same situation, that just are carrying things from their past that they don't even know is affecting their day-to-day decision making. And it's something that everyone should kind of really look into on a self-development standpoint, because it was pretty massive on my part.
Interesting. So I wanted to – everybody's going to be like, okay, this is – okay, I'm intrigued, but what is the story? So I'm going to just read from – because I pre-ordered it. I pre-ordered the paperback.
Thank you,
sir.
So
because and we're going to go into the details about, selling books on Amazon and the process of any sort of product launch, because this would be helpful for any filmmaker and how it relates to film selling films online as well. But the blurb that it says about your book, number one, the book is entitled "Shooting for the Mob," based on the incredible true story, and it says a bipolar gangster, a naive young filmmaker. Oh, sorry, I'll get start over.
I mean, it's like are you an actor? Seriously?
No, I can't even read. I should put my glasses on. So.
Oh, you're old. I got it.
That's what it is.
I completely understand.
I'm sorry. It reads, a bipolar gangster, a naive young film director, and Batman. What could go wrong? Alex Ferrari is a first-time film director who just got hired to direct a $20 million feature film. The only problem is that the film is about Jimmy, an egomaniacal gangster who wants the film to be about his life in the mob. From the backwater towns of Louisiana to the Hollywood Hills, Alex is taken on a crazy misadventure through the world of the mafia and Hollywood. Huge movie stars, billion-dollar producers, studio heads, and of course, a few gangsters populate this unbelievable journey down the rabbit hole of chasing one's dream. Would you sell your soul to the devil to make your dream come true? By the way, did I mention that this story is based on true events? No, seriously, it is. So this is like your true life story, yeah.
I'm going to have you read the audiobook now.
No, God. There's a lot of editing that goes on when I read.
No, trust me, I'm on chapter 3, and it's like, it's brutal. It's brutal.
Oh,
brutal,
yeah.
Brutal. But yes, this is when the radioactive bug bit me. This is my origin story. And I always tell people that people who've been listening to me for years on the podcast hear that grizzled, beaten kind of indie filmmaker on the other side of the mic. This is how it began for me. Like, this was the moment where the universe and this business really started to kick the crap out of me. And I got a couple punches before, but this was the one that brought me to my knees. And we all have that moment, I think, in our career where something happens that just buckles you. Just like Stallone says in Rocky Balboa, he says, like, nothing hits as hard as life. It will bring you to your knees. It's about how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. And that's exactly what this story is.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because, I can't wait to read it because I know you talked about this before, so we can dive into it. So, like I said, I don't have a preview copy of it, so I can't share this information.
I actually sent you a preview copy. You have not read it yet, sir. But that's another question.
Did you?
I sent you a PDF, sir.
You know what? I get a lot of emails, and somehow wait. No. This is
big time.
No, because we're going to get into this because you helped me out because the Film Trooper podcast got booted off iTunes.
Yes,
and we're going to go into the fiasco because I just got some new emails that finally came through that, like, I never saw the original emails that you were talking about, that they gave warning, like, hey, we're going to be doing this stuff. And then now I suddenly, the second iteration of getting the podcast back on iTunes, we'll go into that, but we can go over through like some of the emails that iTunes has been sending us to make sure that our metadata is set up correctly.
Oh,
so you
God,
don't get booted
every
off.
time I get an email from iTunes now, I'm scared to death.
Oh, I'm like, well, after you told me that, I'm like on a hawk. Like, wait, what are they asking here? Yeah.
Like, what do I got to do?
Yeah,
I emailed them right back. They said, like, you can't have episode numbers. I'm like, you can't have it. And I emailed them back. I'm like, you can't have episode numbers anymore?
Yeah.
They're like, and then they sent out a mass email. Many of you have been saying that we are saying that there's no episode numbers. Yes, you can keep episode numbers, but there's new meta ways of doing it so we can better track it. So do this or this. And I'm like, I got to do research on what these things are. But yes.
Yeah.
But this is a whole other conversation.
Yeah. No, we'll get into that because I think it's helpful for people to understand. So we're back to the book.
Yes.
The story itself is, I think this segment here, we're just going to talk about just the life lessons from it. I didn't work for the mob or anything like that, but it's interesting. Like, we're older, like I said, we have the same vintage. And I wonder, do you, I think there's a lot of us, because like we always hear the stories of those who kind of break through and make it, right? There's always they're like a small percentage that kind of
Rodriguez, Tarantino, Smith.
But even the director of La La Land and First Man, I mean, like his trajectory of like making short films, getting in the right sphere of the Sundance workshops, and then all of a sudden the right financiers, boom, not to say it's easy, but just that certain people have a certain track and they have certain talent. Definitely they show it, and there's like 99% of everyone else who doesn't have that same story. And to know that there's a story out there, like a cautionary tale, because all we love, we'll read like Rebel Without a Crew. Oh, this is how he did it. And then, but I think it'd be great to go, here's Rebel Without a Crew. Here's your book that says, I'm following this, path the same way, but mine didn't go that way,
Well, there's actually been a few people who've read the book already that have actually said this is a beautiful companion piece to Rebel Without a Crew, because it's like one made it, one went a different way, and they're both, one's a cautionary tale, one's a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
And I talk about Rebel Without a Crew. I talk about Robert in the book. I even talk about how I almost spoke to Robert one day in college, and that's a whole other. There's a great story in there. and the impact that he did